not that it's a bad thing, but I can't be the only one that thinks that tonight's episode was just a really good setup for next week and the following week. Am I alone in this? Let me know down in the box below. Let's talk about NXT. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Chick, here with your April 27th, 2021 NXT review. House cleaning. Let's do the house cleaning shit first, as we always do. Finally got back together with Kristen after a long hiatus of me being busy, and then her being busy, and then me being busy, and then WrestleMania coming along, and then her being busy. By the way, happy birthday to Travis, but we finally got together, we finally got to do another Flicks Fix, and it was sort of a wrap-up, final thoughts on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. We did a review after the second episode covering those first two episodes. We weren't going to do 4 more episodes in one weekend, were we? So we just sort of did a wrap-up, general thoughts. Spoiler alert, my thoughts on Falcon and Winter Soldier are largely positive. I think they sort of left us wanting more, which was always going to happen when it was only a 6-episode show, but it was really good. Really decent conversation we got out of that. Good to be back in the saddle, so to speak, doing Flicks Fix with Kristen, and we've got some other stuff coming up. We will be doing Godzilla vs. Kong at some point. We will be doing the Unbreakable Split Glass trilogy at some point as well, because the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus is kind of going on hiatus until Loki comes along, but that's not until June, I think? Somebody correct me down in the box below. Also, went out a couple weeks ago, actually went out the week of WrestleMania, but I'm still going to encourage you guys to go back a couple of videos or a couple episodes, depending on how you're watching me here, and check out the first episode of NXT Rewind, which was a review of NXT Arrival from 2014. Now, I will say, looking for more feedback on that, looking to see if you guys like it or not. I've already got the next one in the can, the first actual takeover, NXT TakeOver 2014. It's a lot of fun too. It's got Charlotte Flair in a title match back when we were allowed to like Charlotte Flair, and it reminded me how awesome Tyson Kidd was before the unfortunate incident that happened to him. It's in the can. I'm probably going to throw that out at the beginning of the whatever the next takeover coming up is, which I'm assuming is going to be like SummerSlam-ish. That is going to be the thing going forward, though. I think the way I released the first one, which was an hour before the kickoff of TakeOver, I think that's a good slot. You guys can tell me if you think there's a better one, but I think that one works out pretty damn well. I'm having a lot of fun. I've only done 2 so far. As I say, one's up. You guys can check it out. One's in the can. It'll go out at the next appropriate time. The next one I've got to review, though, the next one I've got to work on is NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way, and the main event of that one, if I can pull it off the top of my head, is Adrian Neville, Tyson Kidd, Sami Zayn, and Tyler Breeze going for the NXT Championship. Little spoiler for the first 2 episodes, I've really decided more and more that the original design of the NXT Championship was a bit ugly and a bit shit. Oh yes. Anyways, and as it says here in my own very scratchy writing on the Doomy clipboard of Doom, it does say plug the socials. So if you want to find me on Twitter, search Spaz Phoenix or Spaz Phoenix1. If you want to find me on Instagram, search Spaz Phoenix. If you want to find me on Facebook, look up the Spaz Phoenix Podcast Facebook group. And if you want to see the pretty sexy face and the gimmick hat, go to YouTube, search Spaz Phoenix. If you don't want to see the pretty sexy face and you don't want to see the gimmick hat, and I can't really blame you, let's be real, go to any audio platform that you choose and put in Spaz Phoenix Podcast. If you're watching me on YouTube, it really would be cool if you guys could hit either a like or a share, or at least throw a comment down in the box below, because YouTube still tells me that I don't get enough interaction, even though scraping up against 1,100 subs, which isn't much, but it's a cool number for me. It's been hovering at the 93 mark for a long time, and I really don't like that. Anyways, now that I've whored myself out socially, let's talk about NXT. No video package, no nothing. Right into the first match, cold open, as they say. Mercedes Martinez versus Dakota Kai. The idea being that she's going to go through Dakota Kai to get to her friend Gonzalez, who just happens to have a pretty shiny new belt on her shoulder. And Dakota Kai, I hope she becomes champion soon. I know we've just put the belt on Gonzalez, and they don't really do short title runs in NXT unless there's an injury or something like that. But I hope Dakota Kai doesn't fall into that Nikki Cross, Ruby Riott, Alexa Bliss category where she gets pumped up to the main roster without ever having a chance to hold hold the title. And I don't mean the 1 hour that her and Gonzalez held the tag titles. I really, really don't. Even though, yes, she does get the distinction of being the first NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And this match just proved it. I mean, Martinez doesn't have anything to prove. Martinez is awesome. Anybody that watched the Mae Young Classic knows that she's awesome. Anybody who's seen her, obviously, before she came to NXT in times that I haven't seen, know that she's pretty awesome. And she's pretty legit, and she doesn't really go into the ring like she's got something to prove. She goes into the ring like she's already proven it, and that's a really cool element, especially to bring to NXT, whereas Dakota Kai just works the hell out of everybody. And those of you that follow mine and Jake's previews for the takeovers and whatever, back before NXT TakeOver Portland, we predicted Dakota Kai versus Tegan Nox, and their street fight on that card was going to be one of the best matches of the night. And little hint, we were right, because Dakota Kai is awesome, and I hope that this hasn't like completely skipped her by for Gonzalez, and that's taking nothing away from Gonzalez. Obviously, she had a great match. She had a great build coming out of I can speak, I swear, coming out of War Games. Then she had that mini feud with Rhea Ripley before Rhea Ripley got sacrificed to the main roster gods. And then she had a couple of run-ins with Io Shirai, and then she got the championship at Stand and Deliver, which makes me really nervous about the status of Io Shirai, does it not? Dakota Kai, you cannot lose Dakota Kai in the shuffle. That would be a crime. Anyways, collar double tie, and Kai works the arm in the early going, a headlock takeover by Martinez, and a figure four headlock by Kai. Leapfrog by Kai, and this was pretty cool. Basically, because Dakota Kai is so small, and I can compare her to an insect when she's fighting a powerhouse like Mercedes Martinez, I can say she picked her out of the air like a fly, so to speak. She literally grabbed her by the 1 foot in such a way that she fell down really awkward into a faceplant, and then Martinez just rolls her over and grabs her by a choke, and she looks like she's going to do like a tree slam type deal, but instead she turns it into an overhead toss followed by a spine buster. You really didn't need your spine, did you? Dakota Kai used to use a move called the chiropractor, which worked on other people's backs. Maybe this is a little bit of karma. Maybe Mercedes Martinez is going to take the spine out of Dakota Kai and hand little bits of it out to all the people that Dakota Kai is. That's really morbid, isn't it? Where did I get that from? Armbar by Kai, and there's a pump kick, corner, forearm shot to follow. Forearms by Martinez, and okay. Don't know what to call this either. This is where I'm going to throw it back out to you guys once again. She pulls her out from the corner, hands under the armpits, over the head, like she's going to do a razor's edge. But then she spins her and drops her into a side slam, almost the old Ezekiel Jackson side slam thing. So I've called it a razor's edge slam because I'm at a loss for what to call things, as usual. Trip into the ropes by Kai, followed by a haluva kick, takes us into the commercial break, and NXT, say it with me, rolls on. Commercial break, we come back, there's a toss out by Kai, both women trade some shots on the outside. There's a pump kick by Kai as they re-enter the ring as she's coming through the ropes, etc. Headbutt by Kai, tornado elbow smash by Martinez, butterfly suplex by Martinez. Martinez is on the outside after she's thrown Kai back into the ring, and she has a good long stare down with Gonzalez, because gee, I wonder if they're setting up a match. Knee strike by Kai when they get back in the ring, and Gonzalez sees that Martinez is going to hit her. She's got her up in a fireman carry for a fireman carry into a something. And Gonzalez, just right in front of the referee, just comes in, gives her a big boot. Obviously, Martinez wins by disqualification, but that's not really the point. There's a post-match beatdown by Gonzalez where she sort of rips her pillar to post, throws her into the apron, throws her into the steps, throws her into the plexi, and then runs her head, and I know a post shot is not anything really new or different, but she just had this way of taking her by the head with both hands and just shoving her into that corner ring post by the plexi, and then she one arms her up into a javelin position and javelins her into the plexi. And now I don't want to stray into hyperbole because you guys know that's not my style, but really, really, imagine Hell in a Cell, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels when they get out to the outside and they're fighting on the floor, and Undertaker just javelins Shawn Michaels. She did that. She didn't do it as good, and there wasn't as much gravitas because they're in the CWC with a very, very limited crowd, and it's all a little put together. But it was that type of what's the word I'm looking for? Propulsion. It was that type of, like, I'm just going to throw you, and bits of you are going to land on the ground. And now, if you're doing that to Mercedes Martinez, who's no small... Now, Gonzalez is probably the biggest woman they've got in NXT right now, but Mercedes Martinez isn't exactly a small person either, so that is a feat. It's like, Are you impressed when Wardlow throws Jungle Boy, or are you impressed when Wardlow throws Brian Cage? It's just when the monsters meet, and yes, that's hilarious because we still have to do the Godzilla versus Kong review, but when the monsters meet and the monsters toss each other around, it is cool, even if it is just to set up a match later on. In the back, we've got Shotzi and Ember, and they got lots on their mind because they've got a non-title match against the girls from the Robert Stone brand tonight, but they've also got a title match to get ready for next week with the ladies from The Way. And then they get flowers delivered. And we get a lot of exposition in a very, very short amount of time because they get flowers, and it's weird and it's awkward, and oh my god, who did these come from, whatever. Then the receiving of the flowers is interrupted by Frankie Monet and her dog, who's sort of still doing this sarcastic introduction thing. The way she's going around and introducing herself, it almost makes me think of back in the day, hi, I'm Dolph Ziggler. It makes me think of that just a little bit, but she reads the card, and the card is from Dexter Lumis, and neither one of them want anything to do with Dexter Lumis, so they're like, ew, no. Now, their reaction is to the Dexter Lumis thing. Their reaction is not to the Frankie Monet thing, so her sort of cameoing in this interview segment almost lost its luster a little bit. Now, anything that lends more attention to Dexter Lumis than whoever's on my screen is always gonna seem like it's lost a bit of luster, because look at what I think of Dexter Lumis. Oh yes, but I will say, before we go on to anything else, this was at about the first half hour mark in the show, and I beat it over the head so vehemently because I'm such a fan of NXT. As you guys know, my biases are what they are, and I always say they've got a women's division that they could beat any other company over the head with. But think about that. In the first half hour, we've got Mercedes versus Kai. We've got set up for Mercedes versus Gonzalez. We've got a backstage who's one of your champions. You got a backstage segment with two more of your champions and the next 4 women that they're going to be facing. That's what you established in 1 half hour for your women's division. And this is only a half hour into the show, and there's more to come. Oh yes, that's what she said. Moving on. Cameron Grimes is the rich idiot, so he's in a jewelry store and he wants the best watch possible. Okay. Grizzled Young Veterans come out and they finally got some promo time. They talk about tonight's 6-man and how MSK would rather be in any match other than a straight up 2-on-2 match with them for the championships. They're a great team, but they're also a bunch of knobheads. A division like this needs leadership from guys like us, even if that melts a few snowflakes in the process. You love to see it. And then they do we are the Grizzled Young Veterans, soon to be recognized. I shouldn't do the accents. I know, we do. We have this little me to you conversation every week. I shouldn't do accents, and yet I still try to do accents. But the soon to be is interrupted by Ciampa and Thatcher. Well, it's interrupted by Ciampa's music and Ciampa on the mic, and Thatcher basically comes with him. Ciampa comes out, says, "You're very, very similar." He said, "We're grizzled and we're veterans," and they sort of hop over the young bit. We can be leaders in this division too, we think. We all want to face MSK at some point, and the last time we faced you guys beat us. We respect that. In fact, Toothless Timmy over here actually went back and watched videotape of you guys, and we respect a lot of what you do. But then I went and I watched an event called NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. And I had forgotten about this because it's been so long since I've watched NXT UK on a regular basis. But I used to love when they were in Cardiff, when they were in the UK, and the UK fans have a very interesting relationship with Zach Gibson, and they do that "if you hate Gibson, take your shoes off" thing. And Timothy Thatcher started doing that, and quietly behind him, Tommaso Ciampa just takes off his boots and leaves them in the ring. And they stop mid-sentence, like they're having a thought about this whole shoes off thing, and they sort of stop mid-sentence and beat the shit out of them, which is wonderful. And then in the back, we have a pre-taped video package from all 3 members of Tian Sha, who are sitting in the dark. I imagine that because Aleister Black is re-debuting on SmackDown, and he's got himself a bigger closet that's got a library and some candles and all that sort of thing. If you're watching SmackDown, you know what I'm talking about. I guess he gave them his old closet because they're standing there in the dark with only the light of the camera, shouting random Japanese things into the camera with no context, which is great. I hope this means that the leader chick, the old Dragon Slayer chick, is actually going to wrestle soon. I hope that they're going to get into the tag team division because the tag team division is a lot of fun. Isaiah Swerve Scott is in the studio, and he's talking a bunch of shit about Leon Ruff and how Leon Ruff is actually doing what he would do if he was in Leon Ruff's position, doing the pre- and post-match assaults, attacking him in the back and whatever, and he's sort of giving him this really condescending sort of pat on the head, hey kid, I knew you could do it type thing. We need to take this to the next level, and I'm challenging you to a false count anywhere match. And it sounds like it's the end of the promo, but then they flash the graphic in the corner of the screen like it's already been made, so him making the challenge is kind of useless. I still don't like these promos that he's doing in the studio, and it's not because I don't like Isaiah Swerve Scott. I really do. I think he's great in the ring. I think the charisma that he's got works equally as a babyface and a heel. I know a lot more people prefer him as heel, but this whole idea that he's cutting his promos from a studio, it is the modern day version of like Duke the Dumpster Droese or IRS or whatever. It's just these people that have like other jobs and also wrestle. It's like, you know, Jeff Jarrett is going to conquer the world of music through wrestling for reasons. It's weird and it's a little bit disconnected. Now that might be intentional for all I know. It's fine. What's even better than fine, though, is Tony Storm coming out and talking shit about Zoe Stark and says, I made Zoe Stark famous at TakeOver, which, I mean, you fought her on the kickoff. Let's just be real a little bit. You know, I did you the favor of making you famous, but in the end, you're just going to be a footnote in the next chapter of my story. And just like I'm going to show this one over here tonight, she points at the girl at the other end of the ring. You know, basically watch what I do to her, and that's what's going to happen to you if you keep acting up or talking up or whatever the heck she said. Now she's facing Zeta Ramir, who I've never heard of before, which is not a bad thing. It's just I don't have context. I like context. If you guys can't tell, on this episode specifically, I like context. And there's a lot of cool things happening. There's one or two things that are missing the context. Like the Tian Sha promo, I would have loved like subtitles or something so that I could know what's going on. Anyways, and I thought for sure that this was going to be a squash. I really did. Because you get an Irish whip by Storm and a boot and a beat down and a Beal across the ring by Storm, obviously showing the power. This Zeta Ramir chick is significantly smaller. It sort of mimics the first match a little bit. But Mudhole stomp by Storm and an uppercut, boot by Ramir and a couple of jabs, a snap release German suplex by Storm that looked like it absolutely wrecked, and a back elbow. But Zoe Stark comes out for the distraction. Ramir gets some kind of shot in. I don't know whether it was a right hand or a forearm or an elbow or anything like that, but she does get Storm down for a brief period of time, enough to hit a fucking shooting star press and get the surprise victory, which is awesome. Now I hope this isn't just so that they could say Tony Storm lost to a nobody and then make her be pissed off and have her go on to Zoe Stark. I hope this is like the shock introduction of this Zeta Ramir chick, because they pretty much did that with Zoe Stark. Like they threw her in the Mae Young in a first round losing team, but then they brought her on. They had one match with her. She impressed the hell out of everybody. She then went on to develop the relationship with Io Shirai after a match with her, and then get onto the TakeOver kickoff, which is also great. Now, if they're gonna strap a rocket to this next girl, who again I'll have to see more than once and more than in a 2-minute match, but if they're gonna strap a rocket to her the same way they strapped a rocket to Zoe Stark, we've also got the introduction of Saray. We've got Cora Jade and Gigi Dolan still waiting in the wings, and Jesus Christ, this women's roster is an embarrassment of riches. And after that, we got this video package that was just a lot of like working out, and it looked like it was mostly shot through the cage of or through the wall of an MMA cage. This is me, who knows absolutely zero about MMA. The extent I know about MMA is Brock Lesnar used to do it, and Ronda Rousey used to do it. So if you want to come at me and ask me anything about MMA, I'm going to tell you nothing about MMA. But it's basically a bunch of obscured shots where you don't really know what you're looking at. And then it says the Diamond Mine. And it's got that diamond sort of logo that's kind of on the most of Tessa Blanchard's ring gear. And somebody said on Twitter, I wish I could remember the Twitter handle, but I can't because I'm a terrible person. Basically, they put up a picture of that logo and said, if this means they've signed Tessa Blanchard, nobody's ever going to touch them again. Now, that is, I make the joke all the time, but that is legit stretching into hyperbole, because you can always pick up somebody brand new that nobody's heard of that takes your entire thing into the stratosphere, right? But they get Tessa Blanchard. That's something. That's something. I don't know if that's who it is. Does anybody know? Does anybody know? I know I saw a lot of articles about different things that they're trying to trademark, and Diamond Mine was on there. Now, I don't know whether Diamond Mine is a tag team, like with her and somebody else. I don't know if the Diamond Mine is like her nickname or it's supposed to be her nickname. If they've actually changed her name to Diamond Mine, that's a bit rough. But nonetheless, it doesn't change the talent, and why is the light going out? Why is that a thing? There we go. Don't use your monitor as a light source when you're trying to film a video, and don't be poor ass like me. Moving on. I kind of hope it is Tessa Blanchard, just because, yeah, AEW has a women's division. That's cute. Phantasma backstage are hyping up the six-man match later on tonight. We're about to get Austin Theory versus Bronson Reed, but in the back we get LA Knight bragging about his victory last week over Dexter Lumis, and how Indy Hartwell inadvertently helped him get that victory over Dexter Lumis, and then he cuts a promo that ends with him asking her if she's got a tingle in her loins for him, which just made me chuckle. Anyways, Theory versus Reed, you guys know the deal. It was set up last week. Austin Theory set up a match that said you can't have a match against Johnny Gargano until you beat me. So now this match is beat Austin Theory and get a shot at the North American Championship. Gee, I wonder how this is going to go. We see Reed making his entrance into the arena. He has a quick stare down with Johnny Gargano at the gorilla position, and then Austin Theory comes out to Gargano and says, "Hey, what are you guys doing over here? That's kind of weird. You guys are just standing here in the dark. What's up?" I love idiot Austin Theory. It's great. And this is my weekly reminder to everybody out there that's not a special or hypersensitive individual, shall we say. You are allowed to be a fan of Austin Theory. It's okay. You'll be fine. Anyways, collar double tie up and press in the corner by Reed, pie face by Theory, headlock by Reed, reversed into a headlock by Theory, and a shoulder tackle by Reed. Series of strikes by Theory and a pounce. But the pounce by Reed, not quite like Keith Lee, but still pretty damn good. Shoulder tackle off the apron by Reed while Austin Theory is sort of hanging upside down in a weird, not even Tree of Woe thing. Dropkick by Theory, who tosses Reed out of the ring. There's a super kick by Gargano on the outside while nobody's looking, which is great. Theory follows up on that with a suicide crossbody to the floor, which was really, really nice. It won't set the world on fire, but it was really, really nice. And then Reed eats the steps on the outside as we go to commercial break, and say it with me, NXT rolls on. Rear chinlock by Theory as we come back from the commercial break, stomps on all the limbs and goes back to the neck with a neck vice. Elbow shots by Reed, gorilla press slam, and an avalanche by... let's be real. I'm not a small person, so I think I'm allowed to say this. Bronson Reed's a big dude. If he comes at you with an avalanche, you're probably going to die. So, all due respect to Austin Theory, who didn't die. Corner splash by Reed and a running senton followed by a modified chokeslam. Blockbuster by Theory, a Samoan drop by Reed, a super kick by Theory, and a snap vertical suplex by Reed. Lumis shows up on the ramp and has his eyes on Indy, and that distracts everybody, realistically. Indy runs into the ring at some point. There's a big distraction. Reed tosses Theory into Lumis, who's on the apron, follows it up with a lariat and a tsunami to get the win. Now, here's the thing. Here's where my weekly conflict comes in with the Dexter Lumis thing. I don't care about Dexter Lumis. I really do think it's a bummer that the Dexter Lumis interference led to Bronson Reed getting this win, because going into a title match, it would behoove him to go into that match looking like he earned it, like he did at TakeOver Night 2. Now, I've said before, my theory is you get that belt off Gargano, put it on Reed, we can have some new feuds over it while Theory and Gargano go for the tag titles. That's a conversation to have at a different time. I don't like Lumis. I don't like the fact that Lumis sort of came out here and made Reed look weak in his victory. But I still love the Way's reactions to Lumis, because he's a ridiculous character, and you've got 4 other ridiculous characters. I don't know why I'm doing hand motions. People listening in audio, you guys don't care. You've got one character that I find ridiculous, and you've got 4 other ridiculous characters over here backing up how ridiculous I think Lumis is. And I really hope, Indy Hartwell has a good spot in this group, the way with Gargano and Candice and Austin Theory. I really hope they don't linger her in this Loomis shit for too long. That's just me. It is what it is. Kushida and MSK are talking in the back, hyping up tonight's main event, and they basically talk about what social media has been saying the past 2 or 3 days or so, and it's a story that Kushida told on his social media, which was basically Alex Shelley, his old tag team partner, letting Kushida know how good MSK are. Hey, these guys are good. I know they're coming your way. Keep an eye out for them type thing. Which I thought is, I don't care if that's fake. I don't care if that story is true at all. It's a nice story. And you know what? Look around at the world in 2021. We could use some nice stories. Could we not? It's all good. And they said for one night only, they're not going to be MSK, they're going to be MS Kushida, which yes, is lame, but it's the right kind of lame. It's fine. The Way are in the back and they're all pissed off because the night is not nearly going the way they thought. They try to get into Indy Hartwell's head and try to gaslight her a little bit. It's like, look, Dexter Loomis is sending Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon flowers because, you know, they're trying to get his attention. They're trying to steal your man away. Like, we don't like that you like Dexter Loomis, but these girls are trying to take, so we're gonna go take care of them. We're gonna handle them later. It's just so fucking good. We see shots from Finn Balor's social media that he's been on vacation the past couple of weeks with, I'm assuming, his wife. They've been in Mexico. It was a really cool, like, real life way to let us know that Balor's going to be back next week making his return to NXT. But I just thought, that's really cool. They didn't bother writing a story. They didn't bother writing him out with an injury or anything like that. They're like, nah, this guy was kind of wrecked after TakeOver, so he went on vacation. Good for him. He'll be back next week. That's good. I like that. That is really, I can't tell you, because it seems so innocuous and so irrelevant, but they didn't do anything to it. He's been on vacation. He'll be back next week. It's good. I can't tell you why I like it so much, but I do. Now, Imperium versus Maverick and Dane. They played up before the match started that Drake Maverick is hella paranoid that his buddy is going to turn on him and join Imperium because he has ties to Alexander Wolf and all that kind of thing. So he's saying, oh, are you going to attack me on the rampway? Are you going to leave me high and dry in the ring? Whatever. And he's like scared of his own partner more than he is of the opponents. But like, I'm looking at my notes, guys. I really am. I'm looking at my notes and I don't care. He got his ass hit, like, they killed him. I mean, Imperium, I'm not even going to bother talking about the match. They killed Drake Maverick for most of this match, to the point that I think he broke the fly on his jeans. So he spent, I will give credit to Drake Maverick, as funny as this sounds, because for at least half this match, he was trying to wrestle and keep his pants on. So I can't imagine that was easy or fun for him. But it's an Imperium match, and do I care if Killian Dane joins Imperium? No, because I don't care about Imperium. The only person in Imperium that I give a shit about isn't here. And the stand-in for him is Alexander Wolf, who is on, I think, his 3rd or 4th faction at this point. And, I mean, Killian Dane came from Sanity, and I don't know. This is the downward spiral bit of the review, as I've been saying for the past little while. I'm biased. I'm incredibly biased towards NXT, so something has to be pretty bad for me to point it out as being bad, and I don't care about anything to do with Imperium. They did this thing on the stage where they were all standing, and Alexander Wolf sort of tried to take a step forward, like stand in that Walter pose, but then the other two stepped up with them, so there's already a power struggle within the group that I don't care about. So why am I going to care about somebody else joining the group that I don't care about? This is a, like, okay, I'm not Simon Miller, I'm not doing the ups and downs here, but this is a down. It doesn't work for me. There's a lot of other tag team stuff in NXT that they're trying to do that is really cool. Grizzled Young Veterans are great. Whatever they're going to do with Ciampa and Thatcher will be great. The stuff that we're going to talk about in the main event is great. The fact that they brought Breezango back from the wallows of the main roster so that they can actually have some fun in NXT is great. Imperium are not great. They're great athletes, and I always have to put that caveat in there because I've seen them do some cool shit, and I've seen them live, and they're not bad wrestlers. I just, like, my amount of caring is in the negative. The abacus to count the fucks that I do not give has not been built yet for Imperium, which is kind of sad because I was hoping when Killian Dane came back to NXT that he was going to be a monster, but then they did sort of, they made their own version of Team Hell No. Like, they're not giving me goofy, fun Drake Maverick, and they're not giving me monster Killian Dane. They're just giving me a little bit monstrous, a little bit serious, both of them, and I don't, like, they're not going to get the titles. Like, it is what it is. As I say, the main talking point for me is the fact that Drake Maverick had to wrestle half a match with pants that weren't functioning properly. Another pre-tape promo in the back from Pete Dunne, who's calling out everybody. He takes his time to call out each and every one of the champions. Says that he already beat Kushida, so he could pick up his new title at any given time. Talks about Johnny Gargano. Basically, you know what'll happen if you go against me. Maybe I'll go back to NXT UK and I'll. He says I'll spark off Walter, which is basically like, you're holding my belt and I'll take it if I want to. I made that title famous. And then he says I wouldn't need any smoke and mirrors to handle Karrion Kross, which is, not gonna lie, these are all matches that I want to see, all of them. Now, I will say it would be a bit funny to me to put the Cruiserweight Championship on Pete Dunne, because he comes off as a main eventer, and the Cruiserweight Championship, as much as I love it, as much as I've put high praise on it since they brought it to NXT and made it not a grapefruit roll-up, I don't think it would sit on Pete Dunne. I want bigger, better things for Pete Dunne, because NXT is the show that I have the bias for. Yes, we've just done this 2 seconds ago. Pete Dunne, specifically, I got my Destiny Wrestling bias in there as well. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list, it's fine. And then we go back to Cameron Grimes, who's looking for a watch. He thinks he's found the right one, and a voice from behind says, that's a pretty nice watch, but it's not $1 million watch. Turns around, and it's the $1 Million Man, isn't it? And he's just laughing in his face, and, oh, man. I can see where this is going. And it would be better if Cameron Grimes was somebody that I was 100% on board with to begin with, but you guys know, I've always been honest with you, I'm 50-50 with Cameron Grimes at best, and it's like, either this is going to be kind of cool, or it's going to be really, really bad. Anyways, Shotzi and Ember versus Aaliyah and Jessie Camilla from the Robert Stone brand doesn't happen because the gift delivery guy shows up at ringside with more flowers and more chocolates for Ember and Shotzi, presumably from Dexter Lumis, and then they get their asses handed to them by Candice and Indy because of the match that we talked about next week. In the meantime, in the meantime of all this, because he's an absolute goofball, Robert Stone of the Robert Stone brand grabs one of the women's tag team titles, doesn't give it to either of his girls, walks around with it himself. So Robert Stone, in his own mind, is the women's tag team champion. Do with that what you will. Anyways, then we go to the Adam Cole interview that's being held by, I think, some guy from Sports Illustrated, I'm not going to lie. He spends all his time on the phone saying that he's waiting for the interview to start, and then the interview guy says, well, I was waiting for you. And they played this up on social media quite a bit. They based part of the advertising that I saw on Raw. I didn't see much of Raw. I fell asleep like an hour into Raw last night, and I don't care. Raw is terrible. Like, I don't even have the energy to make a joke about how terrible Raw is. Scoop out NXT, make it an island. Make call-ups not a thing. Introduce this new NXT Evolve thing that you got going on. Maybe trade between NXT Evolve, and NXT UK. Just have your own little community of 3 brands right there, because 205 Live can fuck off. Like, nobody watches 205 Live. And SmackDown is okay. And the thing is, I enjoy SmackDown for what it is. It's Friday, it's the end of the week, I'm unwinding, I'm doing whatever else I'm doing, and I got SmackDown on in the background. And it's good, especially by comparison, when you can just say, well, at least it's not Raw. The guys from What Culture make a very, very apt comparison all the time. And it's like, okay, yeah, SmackDown's pretty good. There's some pretty good wrestling happening there. But it's also Meg from Family Guy when they hire the ugly chick to stand beside her so that she looks better, and the guy comes by and says, hey Meg, did you get less ugly? That's sort of SmackDown right now, which is terrible because there is some good stuff going on there. But keep all that shit away from NXT. Get the new Evolve show up off the ground. Keep the NXT we have right now, and try to put some new life in NXT UK when they're allowed to have crowds over there and whatnot. I hear their bars and whatnot are open over there, so hopefully that'll all come to fruition. You guys will know as well. Myself and Jake did a pod several weeks ago where I sort of laid out my theoretical idea of how I would save NXT by cutting it in half. Pretty much that's the name of the vid. You can go look at it if you want. But this whole, you know, sharing between NXT, the new Evolve show, and NXT UK is the closest thing to what I said. Let them live on their own merit and stop stealing people to the main roster, because the main roster is so shit. Like, what happened on Raw that you need to know about? What happened? T-Bar and Mace don't have their masks anymore, but they're still T-Bar and Mace, and they're still talking nonsense. They just don't have a leader anymore. I call that regression, not progression. Anyways, Adam Cole, in this interview, talks about how he's feeling post-takeover. You know, he's felt better in his life, but he's also felt worse. He talked about the fact that, you know, what hurts the most is the weight of carrying the Undisputed Era and carrying NXT. Kyle's not a main eventer. Kyle couldn't do all I did for the Undisputed Era, for the title, and for NXT. NXT is one of the... NXT, the championship picture, is one of the most competitive in pro wrestling, and Cross is good, but I don't know if he's great yet. My next move is nobody else's business. And then we pan out, and it's Kyle just watching it and sort of smirking it off, but sort of still melodramatic as we were going into TakeOver, which I know is questionable. I know a lot of people don't like it, so they're going to say that it's bad, but like the guys there on Sports Illustrated or whatever the hell it is, talking shit about you, so that should piss you off. And your main event is Phantasma versus MSK and Kushida, or MS Kushida, for the night. I didn't take notes for this. I sort of kicked my feet up and I watched this, and I'll just give you my general thoughts on it. There's way too much for me to take notes on. If you guys remember back when they did the Cruiserweight Classic, at the end of the Cruiserweight Classic, I basically said, I'm going to not even try to take notes during Cruiserweight matches because there's way too much going on and I'll be hitting the pause button every 5 minutes. And I tried for the first minute or so of this, and then I just sort of gave up. I will say, the Cruiserweight title is sort of in a bit of a resurgence since Devlin and Escobar and now Kushida have had it. They're names that people are interested in one way or another, so it's cool. So it's cool to see the Cruiserweight Championship represented in the main event. The tag titles is obviously where NXT falls down. I've always admitted that, even though I'm a shill. So it's cool to see them represented in the main event. It's cool to see the Cruiserweight Champion and the Tag Team Champions in a main event slot with 3 other guys that have said, hey, I want that Cruiserweight Championship. That's something of value. That's something I want to strive for. And 2 other guys in the same faction that have said, hey, we want those tag team titles. Those are something to strive for. Those are a main event concern. And these guys were insane. One thing I will say, and it's not by far the most impressive thing in this match, I still love the armbar driver by Kushida, that thing where he has him in the standing armbar and just drives the shoulder joint down. They call it something else, but I like armbar driver better, so it is what it is. There is a point where it all spills to the outside, and Kushida and Carter are left in the wake of stuff. I think one of them eats a set of steps, and the other one goes through a table, or something similar to that. Kushida goes through a table, I believe, because he's being seen to by medical staff, and Carter's just out. So we have this long, stretched out period where Wes Lee is holding his own 3-on-1 against, you know, the former Cruiserweight Champion and his 2 cronies, which was a great little spotlight thing for him. Eventually, Carter crawls himself back onto the ring for a return for a hot tag. It doesn't go very far because it's still 3-on-2. Kushida breaks out of the doctors that are trying to give him medical attention just in time to jump into the ring, get kicked in the face, and get hit by the Phantom Driver. The other 2 members of Phantasma, Wild and Mendoza, hit some sort of double team maneuver on, I believe it was Carter. I'm not going to lie. And that ends the show. This was really good. I could have done, I'm not going to lie, because this got a decent amount of time. I could have done with this match getting 5 more minutes. I could have done without the, you know, let's just take out 2 guys and make it mostly a handicap match. But on the other side of the coin, it did give them a chance to put a spotlight just on Wes Lee. And there is some cool value to that, because you got a team that came in as an actual team. It wasn't just thrown together. MSK exist as a team, but I do still think there is some value in showcasing them uniquely. Even if you need to drive home that they function better as a unit than as individual wrestlers, that's fine. That's a cool story to tell, because it reinforces that they are a team. This isn't just 2 people that they've thrown together like Ciampa and Thatcher, even though I think that's sort of working okay. Like Team Hell No, which was absolutely retarded. Yes, Deluxe Man, it was. Oh yes. But it was a cool sort of unexpected spotlight on Wesley, and I really, really like that. And it just showed the difference throughout this entire match. You've got one set of three that are a unit, and the other set of three, which is a unit of two, and another guy that they just think they're going to work really well with. Now, all the baby faces are working together. They've got all the hope spots. They've got the hot tags, etc. That going up against a team that is genuinely a three-person unit there are two different stories going on there, and I think they showed that in the way that Legado del Fantasma, even when they were on the back foot, didn't feel like they were losing the match. It had sort of like a, I'm going to sound really cliche there, even when they were not on the offensive in the match, the three of them collectively, sort of as a aura, as an attitude order, they had sort of a collective dominance of the situation. I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys understand what I mean by that. And like I said, why? Fuck off. Leave the light on. There we go. Magical powers. I'm like the Fiend or Alexa Bliss. Anyways, what was I going to say? Yes, at the beginning of this pod, I said that this is an okay show and it's a setup for the next 2 weeks. So let's talk about the next 2 weeks. We know Bronson Reed has a shot at the North American Championship. They just haven't announced when. I think it's going to be in 2 weeks, and I think they're going to hold off that announcement until next week. But what we know for sure is Bronson Reed and Johnny Gargano are going to fight over that title at some point. Next week specifically, we've got the return of Finn Balor from his nice Mexican vacation, which is awesome. We've got Isaiah Swerve Scott taking on Leon Ruff in a Falls Count Anywhere match. We've got Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon taking on Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell for the NXT Women's Tag Team titles in what is now a street fight after they were jumped at ringside tonight. And then in 2 weeks, we've got Raquel Gonzalez defending her championship against Mercedes Martinez, and I think if you put the Gargano-Reed match on there as well, you've got 2 stacked shows coming in the next 2 weeks. This is really good if you've been watching the ratings, like I have, since the 2 shows of split nights and since NXT's gone on to Tuesdays. They started off high, they've only gone higher. I mean, AEW kind of spiked in the other direction. I'm not laughing, I promise. But no, just in general, I think the show's going in a cool direction. I do still think they're sort of throwing on big matches to get your attention to the following week. But guess what? You put good shit on the show and people will watch. I love that. I love that when they were running up against AEW, and I love that before AEW was even a thing. They would announce a really cool match or a really cool stip or a really cool storytelling continuation thing, and the dialogue or the narrative online would always be, well, they're only putting that on that show so you'll watch it. Yeah, that's kind of what promotion means, and NXT is part of WWE, and WWE is the biggest wrestling promotion there is. So yes, they came up with a really good match that people want to see. They told the people that would want to see that match is happening so that people would go and watch it. That's kind of how it works. What they don't do is what they do at the end of Dynamite and say, here's next week's entire card. Because they shouldn't. And that's, like, you do have to have the other side of that coin of, hey, that's a cool match that's happening, that's a cool match that's happening. I wonder what else is going to happen. Guaranteed, no matter what, the women's division of NXT is going to smack everybody. So there you go. I've rambled on for quite long enough. We're going on the 45-minute mark. How scary is that? If you're still listening right now, you've been listening to me for approximately 45 minutes. That's almost half the length of the show that I'm talking about. I should probably shush, shouldn't I? I've been Spaz, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.